Democracy That Delivers is brought to you by the Center for International Private Enterprise. Now, to your host.
Hello and welcome to this installment of Democracy That Delivers. My name is Tamari and I am an Associate Program Officer with the Policy and Program Learning team here at SIPE. Today we are lucky to have three amazing guests: Milos Nikolic from Libek in Serbia, Grace Nzao from Newsline Media in Kenya, and Yemi Adamolekum from Enough is Enough in Nigeria. They are the awardees for this year's FEDN Small Grants Program, and I'm so excited that we have the opportunity to speak with them today. Why don't we go ahead and get started? If you can please introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about your small grants project, what motivated you to work on this subject?
Hello, everybody. So my name is Milos Nikolic. I'm from Belgrade, Serbia. I'm president of Libertarian Club Libek and also editor-in-chief of media outlet The Wave. Our idea behind this small grant was to provide especially younger intellectual enthusiasts and younger political activists and some students in Serbia to provide them with some exciting stories about the reforms from Central and Eastern European countries in last 30 years, to provide them with some kind of intellectual content for wider debates on EU integration of Serbia and how to strengthen these free market reforms in our country. Namely, with our grant, we will produce 18 analytical articles, so stories and analysis, but in a popular way to explore more deeply these reforms that are very inspirational and to explore various aspects of these reforms, either from national level or from regional and local level. The context of the whole story is that now Western Balkans is in a specific position. There's countries that are EU candidates for full membership, but it's unfortunately a long way to be a full member of EU. And we are now trying to explore maybe some alternatives, namely to start maybe to open wider discussion about some alternative ways how to connect our countries, our economies to European Union. So basically our motivation was to see, is there any potential on policy side to move forward creating of regional common market that can be maybe a fast track to create some new connections with European Union while we are waiting for full membership in EU. That was like our motivation behind this small grant and with all this analytical content that we will produce along the way. Thank you.
It's a pleasure to be here. My name is Grace, and I work for Newsline Media. Newsline Media is a media company, and our work is basically we tell stories through digital media, the use of digital media, as well as live streaming. And in the course of doing this work, we realized that we must start applying communication in what it is that we do. But we also realized that there was a gap, a very huge gap in the knowledge of democracy and how the youth especially can participate in democratic spaces that are available for them. Now, just a quick background about Kenya. We are enjoying our, I believe, 12th year since we did something very important for this country, which is to do devolution. And what happened is that we were able, as a country, to devolve a lot of the administrative services and also political, services to the lower, like to the, would say to the grassroots. And the idea there was really to enhance democracy, but also to allow people, the ordinary community members, to actually participate in decision-making processes, such as the budget-making process, such as accountability, keeping the public officials accountable, and also making sure that they have access to public information. But we realized that 12 years later, there's still a huge gap in the sense that the youth are still not able to participate in these democratic spaces. And the biggest reason or the major reason why they are not able to participate in this democratic space is because they do not know how to.
and they don't also know that the spaces exist, because the knowledge of being able to participate in democratic spaces has been for a long time since devolution. It's been something that has been spared for the elite and people who really work in the public space. So that is what motivated our project. The fact that we have an opportunity to create awareness on democratic spaces that the youth can access, and it is their right to access according to our constitution, and be able to keep public officials accountable, be able to access public documents and public services on demand.
My name is Yemi Adamoleku. I'm the Executive Director of Enough is Enough Nigeria. Our project is called Office of the Citizen. And what motivated us is, one, we believe that the Office of the Citizen is the highest office in any country, even though people tend to focus on elected officials. And also, we were introduced to it by Tokima Bugunje, who sits on the board of SITE, I believe. We're looking forward to the project. It's nice because it brings together 3 different groups in Nigeria working on kind of different but similar projects. So the project really is to help citizens connect the dots between policies and their lives. Citizens, well, specifically focused on SMEs. So the big chunk of it would be radio dramas that speak to that issue. So the idea is to have influencers, celebrities who either, they're entrepreneurs because they're running their own businesses in a certain way, but also have a huge following among young people, talk about how they understand how government policies affect them. One of the gentlemen I hope we'll be able to get is a lawyer turned rapper. So he went to law school, graduated, but now he's more known for being a rapper. But he's also one that is an active citizen, uses his platform very effectively to engage. And especially when he decides to engage on policy-related issues, it gets a lot of traction because he's a lawyer. So and his father is a pretty famous lawyer as well. So we're looking forward to having him on board. And after the skits are done and aired on radio, the plan is then to cut clips of them and either animate them with images and sound that can then be played on social media. So Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter, just to expand the audience. And we're hoping if we can there's the SIPE grant is paying for one radio station, but we hope if the content comes out as engaging as we think it will, we can leverage it on other radio stations at no cost because they'll see the value of it as content. So we're quite excited about that. And then the last bit of the project is a town hall meeting with SMEs in an area of Lagos and the elected officials. We have elections next year. So we thought it would be a good way to start having the conversations, both as a scorecard review of what the legislator has done, and also an opportunity for those in that area, the SMEs in that area, to tell the legislator what they would like him to do next year. So that's the project.
Great. Thank you very much. My next question is, all 3 of your projects have a large youth component. Did you have any special considerations when thinking about how to target or work with youth?
I can get started. Ours primarily because 18 to 34-year-olds are Nigeria's largest voting demographic. So it was essential that we target that audience in shaping how they engage in the electoral process because they have the most to lose or gain, however it comes out. And this special consideration really is the choice of who's talking to them. So as I said earlier, the lawyer turned rapper is one that connects quite well with young people. And also the platforms that we choose. So yes, there'll be radio skits because most Nigerians get their news from radio, but also then leveraging that into social media, which also has a huge youth population.
My organization, LIBEC, as an educational research center, has a serious reputation when it comes to engaging youth in various educational, intellectual activities. So our idea was to have this support as a tool of synergy with other activities that we are doing. For example, some educational panels that we're organizing, seminars, panel discussions, and so forth. So to have synergy and to provide these young people, activists, members of political parties, and likewise to provide them, as I said, with some useful stories and experiences. In Serbia right now, youth are very politically sensitive population because they are rapidly losing enthusiasm for EU integration. They think that it was a very long process, almost 20 years since the first steps in that direction. So it's a kind of political risk that they can be misused from some collectivists and far right politicians that are strongly against EU integration. So our idea was to kind of to have an intellectual damage control of all these misconceptions and myths that are present. Unfortunately, fake news and unfortunately propaganda from some even foreign sources against the EU, and to have all of these stories and all this approach as an additional tool how to provide these young people with inspirational stories, but with a strong data-based approach, and again to sparkle that EU enthusiasm again among younger population.
Yes, let me follow up on that. We targeted the youth because in our project specifically targets youth in agribusiness. And that is very important because of the location of where the project happens. We are doing the project in what we popularly call in Kenya the bread basket of Kenya. This is where it's an area that is very rich in agriculture. But what we have found is that increasingly, with the problems of unemployment and everything, the youth are getting into agribusiness because they have to keep active economically. That said, they find that they've gotten into a space where not a lot of policy legislations or a lot of resources have been channeled to, because at some point in Kenya, agriculture got ignored and it was given a lot of lip service. And so now the youth have come into agribusiness and there are no policies that favor commercial agricultural processes. So we are working with the youth to help them identify ways that exist to speak for themselves and voice out their challenges in that sector. And then as they do that, they will be able to create an enabling business environment for themselves and markets, of course. And at the same time, they will also be able to keep their leaders accountable. Now, this is very significant in Kenya because just like in Nigeria, the youth are amongst the largest. I think our countries, we have a huge population of the youth and they're the most voters. We are just coming out of an election right now. And one of the things that seemed to guide the decisions of the voters was generation. Kenya is at a point where we are trying to change the generation, the older generation, to replace them with the younger one, if I can say that. But we are going through that kind of a transition where we bring in fresh leaders. And we've seen now in Kenya, we have young people that have been elected to parliament that are as young as 24 years old. And this time it's not one or two. In 2017, when we had our previous election, there were just about two. Now we have more than 10 young people that have gotten in there. So our project is very timely, and it also is very specific to youth empowerment, as well as empowering a youth at 360, not just about money or anything else.
Thank you so much. We've talked a lot about the impacts on youth specifically, but on a broader level, what impact do you think your small grant project can have on democracy in your community?
All right. So our project will have impact in our community, first of all, by just letting the youth know that it is possible for them to keep their leaders accountable and to demand for services, because they are taxpayers and they really need to make sure that they are able to access the resources that are available to them. That is one. The other thing that happens, which is very important, is that there's going to be economic empowerment and preparation for AFTA, or the Africa Free Trade Area, Africa Free Continental Trade Area. I think that's what it is. So the youth in Elgeyo Marakwet, which is where we're going to be doing this project, already have interesting products that can be exported outside of this country. And they need to be ready for this when finally AFTA comes into place. They need to be ready for it. So our greatest impact, we believe, will be the preparation of the youth. They will be ready for that market. They will have put in the right systems to be able to access the market easily, because they will have prepared their business environment so they can actually produce the products that they're supposed to send out. They will have prepared their businesses by putting in place the right anti-corruption systems to make sure that they are not prone to unnecessary court legal battles because of corruption and bribery, because that's a big thing in this country. And they will be able to empower themselves and empower the rest of their communities. And that is what we see as the greatest impact of our project.
So we see impact in a way of some kind of to have bigger support for policy solutions for regional economic integration. So I would say that the biggest impact would be to see a wider support in opinion polls and also in policy debates across the spectrum, to see growing support for these initiatives that would aim to strongly connect our region, our regional economies, and to improve confidence in economic freedom and entrepreneurial skills in our region. Because all of these solutions will, at the end of the day, they will ease the social tensions and some ethnic tensions that are still existing in Western Balkans. So I would say that would be greatest impact, to see growing support, because we're dealing with this grant, we're dealing with media content, with the intellectual content. So I would say that the biggest impact would be to transfer these media content, these, as I said, intellectual content and ideas, to see them transformed in some support for policy solutions, in free market policies and regional economic integration.
I believe that the larger impact would be because the content is widespread. So radio, as I said, is not obviously not limited to just young people, and it's the platform that most Nigerians get their news from, according to several surveys that have been done. So excited about that. And also social media allows it to impact not just those in Nigeria, but anybody that has access. One of the things that I hope we can do, there's not a clear budget for it, but we hope we can also translate the content into other languages to also increase access. So it's not just available for people who speak English.
Thank you very much. And for our final question, what gives you hope for youth and future democratic leaders?
There is hope for the youth and for democracy, especially in Kenya, because first, our constitution has allowed it. And we are all Kenyans, whether you're young or old, we are increasingly appreciating the space that has been created by people that came before us, fighting for democracy and all this. But also because now we have better access to information, and we have better access to our rights. We know what our roles and responsibilities are as citizens. And I think because of that, awareness, knowledge, information, there is definitely a lot of hope for democracy, especially for the young people. They will definitely be enjoying better democratic space than we have moving forward.
So ever since I started to work with young people, with excellent students of Serbia, from that start optimistic about their activities, their goals, their ambitions. So I'm kind of always optimistic when it comes to youth in Serbia. I see a great potential. I see right now in Serbia some kind of revival of political pluralism. In last 2 to 3 years, we had a very rigid system because the political opposition decided to boycott all the institutions, and now we have a new parliament, we have a new energy all around in political institutions, and that reflects also in some youth organizations and activist groups. So I see a new flow of energy, and I'm optimistic that at the end of the day, younger people will be more engaged and they will be provided with more knowledge and great ideas for reforms.
I guess the biggest thing really is just access to information. So as when we started election work in 2011, we noticed and we had an app for people to report election results and happenings from the polling unit. And we realized at the time that the use of it followed Nigeria's broadband map. So basically relative to the more internet penetration, the more people were able to engage. Fast forward 10 years, that's increased significantly. So you have more people with access to the internet and access to information. part one. Number two, due to the work that we have done at Enough is Enough and other organizations, Nigeria has a history of military rule. So democracy, unfortunately, is not taught. So we just kind of assume people will understand what it means to be in a democracy. So there's a bit more intentionality about teaching people their rights and responsibilities within a democracy, which is very different from traditional modes of leadership that tend to be hierarchical. An example I give all the time is that I'm Yoruba, and the Yoruba word for government is Ijoba. Ijoba means a king's domain. So it's kind of hard to be telling people they have voice and agency in a king's domain when the notion of a king is hierarchy, not questioned, his word is law. So excited that there's a bit more awareness that we need to be more deliberate about that. And a campaign that we're driving, which is what this project is called the Office of the Citizen. So really re-emphasizing that citizens have agency, they have voice, and ultimately they have power because citizens choose those who are elected into office. So yeah, hopeful because there's a lot more of that. And then on the back of the NSAS protest 22 years ago, a lot more young people are awake and also understand the state a little differently. I think there was a lot of naivety around the fact that Nigeria is a democracy on paper, but the states react very differently when citizens choose to use their voice. There's still a lot of military heritage, if I want to use that word, in the way government happens. So looking forward to more voice, more agency, and citizens using that more effectively.
Thank you to our wonderful guests for an interesting discussion on youth engagement and their small grants projects. And thank you for listening to Democracy That Delivers. FEDN members work on issues around the world, and we have an upcoming conference on moving from ideals to engagement coming up on September 27th and 28th. For more information on FEDN and our members, you can go to fedn.sipe.org.
Democracy That Delivers has been brought to you by the Center for International Private Enterprise. For more information, please visit sipe.org.